Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury has returned to the courtroom. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Thanks, Judge. We would call Lieutenant Jake Abendschan.
Lieutenant, if you would step forward, raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Jacob Abendschan. Last name is spelled Abendschan.
What is your occupation?
I've been a deputy sheriff for 21 years.
And what is your current duties?
I'm a lieutenant for the patrol division.
What does a lieutenant for the patrol division do?
A lot of administrative work, as near as I can tell. Just overseeing the general operations of the day shift on patrol.
Sounds like a blast.
You would think, but
Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. Let me take you back to 2020. What was your role with the sheriff's office back in 2020?
in 2020, I was a detective sergeant in the investigations division.
And as a detective sergeant, were you involved in the investigation of the disappearance of Gannon Stauch back on January 27th, 2020?
I did have some involvement with that case.
And particularly on January 31st, 2020, were you responsible for the placement and monitoring of a GPS device on a particular rental vehicle?
Yes, I coordinated getting an electronic surveillance device to members of the Metro Vice and Narcotics Unit to place on a Nissan Altima that had been rented by Letecia Stauch.
And why did you want to do that, or why did the investigation kind of go down that road?
The GPS trackers are a good investigative tool when we are trying to identify, whether a person or a vehicle is in a particular place at a particular time. Information gathering.
Was there any interest in hopefully perhaps finding the location of where Gannon Stauch may be based on tracking a vehicle associated with the defendant?
That was a possibility, yes.
Did you work with Sergeant Ditzler in the placement of this GPS device on the rental vehicle?
I met VNI at the police operations center downtown and handed them the tracking device.
Did you have to obtain a warrant before the device was actually placed on this rental vehicle?
Someone did, yes. I did not.
Was this rental vehicle a silver Nissan Altima?
I believe so, yes.
And so what was your role going to be once this device was placed on this Nissan Altima?
Once it was activated, I had the ability at the time to log into the system and basically see where the tracker was at any given time. And it generates points like a latitude, longitude, and addresses to let us know kind of how the vehicle is moving.
And would you be monitoring this 24/7, or would it just be randomly looked at?
Not 24/7. It keeps a historical record of the addresses that a vehicle was at, how long it stopped, what time it was there, that kind of thing. I did that evening make some periodic checks just to make sure that it is registering, because if it were to run out of battery or something, that would be an expensive issue.
And do you have the ability to set the timing on this GPS device as to when it would, I don't know what the proper term is, but go off to say where the vehicle is placed at any given time?
There is like a time adjustment that you can use based on how long you think it's going to be placed. For this one in particular, I can't remember what the exact time frame was. Probably 1 or 2 minutes at most. But it can go as long as 10 minutes or every 5 seconds as needed.
And did you have the ability to change that during the time period the GPS tracker was on the vehicle?
Yes.
And are you capable of, well, not you personally, but can you print out a document that would reflect the GPS pings where the vehicle was at any given time while the tracker was on it?
Yes, I am. And it's a report. It's called an address report, which basically for the time frame that you select, will list everywhere the vehicle had gone during that time period at different rates of intervals of time, every minute or so.
And did you do that for this particular vehicle, the Nissan Altima?
Yes.
And was those time frames January 31st, 2020 at 1:38 p.m. to February 1st, 2020 at 4:44 p.m.? Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds right.
And in front of you there is People's Exhibit 230. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you recognize what People's Exhibit 230 is?
Yes, this is the address report. It's the same as the one I attached to my supplement to the case.
And does that accurately reflect the pings that came off this GPS device that was attached to the Nissan Altima that was related to Letecia Stauch, the defendant in this case?
Yes.
Move to admit People's Exhibit 230.
Objection. Hold on. At one point, you referred to it as 220.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
And that's previously admitted through Detective Perry. So are we talking 230 and not 220?
230. I apologize, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure it's clear. 230 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And so for the record, 230 is a 5-page report that has various GPS data on it. Is that correct?
Yes.
If we can publish 230, please. Can we zoom in on that just a little bit? So what we did is we zoomed in on the top of page 1 of People's Exhibit 230. Could you just kind of run down what we see here, and we can just use the top line there. Can you just go through the different columns and explain what we're looking at here for the jury?
Absolutely. So the first column, the devices, we named the different devices based on the detectives that would use them frequently. So this one is named after me with the moniker of Jake. In Mountain Time, it gives the date and the time that that tracker device is currently experiencing. At this point, it may have been sitting on my desk or in a car or something while I was waiting. So the speed was 0 miles per hour. Park time, generally, that's like if it moves from one spot to another and then stops, it'll give us, like the third line down, 26 seconds. And then it gives an estimated address. 16 East Castilla would be basically the sheriff's office, main office, or the parking garage directly behind it, which is where my office was. So then next it's giving a latitude and longitude. So those are the GPS coordinates on that device.
And obviously that would match up to the address that's listed in the previous.
Yes, it would be very close, yes.
So at the first entry, is it safe to say that the GPS device is at the sheriff's office?
I would feel comfortable with that, yes.
If we could go to page 2. And if we can scroll down to 1458. Thank you. So we've done that now. We're kind of in the middle of page 2 of People's Exhibit 230. I'll turn your attention to the time of 1458, which is 2:58 in the afternoon. Is that right?
Yes.
That entry of the location, are you familiar with that address? 6275 Corporate Drive, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
I think it's a hotel, but I can't be certain.
Would that be the Extended Suites Hotel?
It could be. Again, I'm not sure.
Okay. And do you know where the GPS device was placed on the Nissan?
I do not.
Okay. Needless to say, that's the north side of town, that particular address.
Yes.
And so what can we tell, because that address is on there multiple times. If we can just scroll down a little bit, please. Does that indicate to you that the vehicle is not moving if it is placed on that vehicle at that time?
Yes, that would be the park time, where it's just kind of resting.
And then we go down to 1537, and it says device in motion over 5 miles an hour. What does that mean?
That means that the device itself attached to the vehicle is moving and moving faster than 5 miles an hour.
Does that mean the vehicle's moving?
Yes, it would.
And so at 3:37 on January 31st, the vehicle is now in motion.
Yes.
We can go ahead and scroll down now, please. We can go to 15, that's fine right there, 1538. So at 3:38, it's at 585 Corporate Drive, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yes.
Is that the general area of where it was at 6275 Corporate Drive?
That would be close, yes.
Now, if we can go down to 1545, please. Right there's good. So at 3:45, again, we see the device in motion. What does that mean to you?
That line at 1545, it was moving 22 miles an hour in a southwesterly direction.
And how about below that at 1600 or 4 p.m. on January 31st? Does it tell you the speed of the vehicle there as well?
Yes, 52 miles an hour.
And if we can just scroll down, the vehicle is definitely moving now because it goes 52, 57, 43. Is that right?
Yes.
And so I want to turn your attention to the highlighted portion there, January 31st at 4:41. What's going on at that entry?
With that entry, we have a brief stop in the area of 15291 South Perry Park.
And why do you say brief stop?
The park time doesn't indicate it was, very long at all.
And what's the significance of this location and the vehicle being in this location? Do you know?
I know that became an area of interest later in the investigation.
Were there huge searches going on in that area related to this particular stop?
Yes, there were.
And why were there huge searches going on in that area?
We were searching for evidence or Gannon's body in the area.
And is that because the vehicle associated with Letecia Stauch stopped in that area?
That played into our decision to search the area, yes.
And so when this particular stop happens, and is this in the Palmer Lake area?
This is just north of Palmer Lake on Highway 105, just north of the county line, actually.
And on Highway 85, or was it 195?
105.
105, I'm sorry. On Highway 105, is there an area of that known as the S curve just north of Palmer Lake?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about here, this address?
Yes.
When this was actually happening, were you monitoring the GPS device live, or did you come across this at a later time?
It was likely at a later time.
If we can go ahead and just scroll down, about right there's good. So at 4:58, the vehicle now is going how fast?
41 miles an hour westbound.
So can you tell by looking at this, the frequency of the GPS pings?
Well, that looks like 5 minutes, every 5 minutes.
And would that be consistent throughout? Tell us how that works.
Boy, somebody else would probably have to get into the specifics on when it gets into that.
Is the GPS device designed to ping if the vehicle stops, for instance?
Yes.
And if it doesn't stop, will it go every 5 minutes?
Yeah, that would,
So
depending on what the setting, and based on that, I probably set it for 5 minutes just out of concern of the battery dying.
the battery dies, you don't get any GPS data, is that right?
Right.
I just have a second, Your Honor. Can we scroll down to page 3 at 1823? So at 1823, we're back at 5850 Corporate Drive. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that the same area that the vehicle was at roughly at 3:38 p.m. on January 31st?
Yes.
And so now we're at 6:23 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
And finally, can we go to the last page of People's Exhibit 230, please? You can scroll down to, that's good right there. We can just scroll over to get the date in, please. Thank you, appreciate it. So on February 1st, 10:52 a.m., the vehicle is in Castle Rock. That
Yes,
fair?
it is correct.
Vehicle is heading north at this point.
Yes.
If we can scroll down to 1606. That's good. And so at 4:06 p.m., the vehicle now is in Denver.
Yes, at the rental car return or rental car area at DIA.
And do you have information to corroborate the individuals who rented this vehicle, returned the vehicle back at DIA?
One of the detectives got information that the car had been returned, and so we sent someone up to retrieve the GPS device off the car.
Now, this information that we have in People's Exhibit 230, is it common for other individuals to use this data in conjunction with cell phone data, app data, GPS data from other vehicles to kind of coordinate where individuals are at any given time?
Yes, we have that capability.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Lieutenant Abendschan? All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Call Brian Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat for the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand. Trent?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good. Will you please introduce yourself to our jury and then spell your name for the court reporter?
I am Detective Brian Rogers. I work for the Colorado Springs Police Department as a digital forensics detective. And my last name is Rogers.
Pretty easy spelling.
Yes.
You said that you work for Colorado Springs Police Department, and I think you mentioned what you do. Can you repeat that, please?
I am a digital forensics detective.
What does that mean?
I extract and examine data from digital devices like computers, cell phones, video surveillance systems, and vehicles.
What kind of education do you have and training do you have that allows you to do that kind of work?
I have a bachelor's degree in software engineering, a master's degree in information systems security, and since I started that position, I've attended over 700 hours in training directly related to digital forensics in computers, cell phones, videos, and vehicles.
What do you actually do to, you just mentioned a bunch of different devices. What do you actually do to those devices to extract data from them?
It depends on the type of device or the operating system or even the type of security that is set up on the device. But I'll either have to communicate with the device, like change some settings and extract the information if I have the password or if there is no security. If there is security on a device, I have to try and find a way to break into it or circumvent that security and extract the information.
How many devices have you worked on in your career?
Over my career, I wouldn't know. Last year, I did over 700 cell phones and over 100 computers. I believe over 20 surveillance systems and a few vehicles.
Just last year alone?
Yes.
Do you have certifications as well?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that.
I am an NCASE certified examiner. NCASE is one of our digital forensic suites. It's used for examining data. I'm a certified hacking forensic investigator. I'm also certified in analyzing vehicle data, and I'm a certified forensic analyst.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
I was previously, but I did let that lapse. We weren't getting any benefit from the organization.
All right. Have you been qualified and testified as an expert witness in court?
Yes.
How many times?
More than 50 in this district.
Have you testified in any other districts besides the 4th Judicial District?
Yes, I have.
Oh, how many others?
In Arapahoe County in Colorado, in federal court in Denver, and federal court in Bakersfield, California.
And in each of those, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat this morning. In each of those examples, were you qualified as a digital forensic examiner expert?
Or something along those lines, yes.
Okay. All right, at this time I've moved to qualify Detective Rogers as a expert witness and digital forensic examiner.
Thanks. The witness will be so qualified.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? I'm going to show you Detective People's Exhibit 716. Detective, do you recognize that exhibit?
I do.
How do you recognize it?
I recognize the barcode number. I just looked at this out in the hallway before I
Okay.
came in.
So it's actually a manila envelope, correct?
Yes.
Is it typical that the work you do is placed on some other medium, either a disk or maybe even a hard drive, and then put in a similar envelope?
Yes, that happens. Otherwise, we'll preserve it online in one of our records management systems.
Okay. So does this particular envelope contain some work that you did on a particular device?
Yes.
When did you do the work on this particular device?
January 30th, 2020.
And how did you obtain whatever device we're going to talk about? Who gave it to you?
I was contacted by El Paso County Sheriff's Office Deputy Robert Sirois and asked to extract information from one cell phone.
Based on context at the time, was this a phone that was related to the investigation into Gannon Stauch's disappearance?
Yes.
Did Detective Sirois ask you to perform any particular type of functions as it relates to getting data off that device?
How do you mean?
Well, did he ask you, what did he ask you?
He just asked me to extract the information, not to examine any data from the device.
Okay. And what kind of device was it?
It was an Apple iPhone 8 Plus.
When a detective, either from your own agency or from a fellow agency in the community, asks you to do something like that, do they give you any information about where the phone came from?
It depends on the case, but in this case, I was not told where it had come from.
Okay. When you actually extract data from a phone, do you sometimes gather that information from the data that you extract from it?
Yes.
Was that true of this particular device?
No, I did not review the data.
Okay. So when you tell the jury what you did with this particular iPhone 8 Plus.
So the device was given to me by Deputy Sirois. It was a locked iPhone. Using our tools, I was able to circumvent the security and extract the information from the device. The data that was obtained was copied to a hard drive and then given to Deputy Sirois. The only information that I obtained just for documentation purposes was the phone number and the account associated with the phone.
And that's what I was referring to earlier, and I didn't ask a very good question. So is what's contained in People's Exhibit 716, is that the result of your extraction of that iPhone 8 Plus?
Yes.
Is it a fair and accurate representation as to that extraction process?
Yes.
You know, at this time, I would move for admission of People's 716.
Mr. Cook? Exhibit 716 will be admitted.
Once you completed that extraction, do you turn that back over to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I did.
And then that was the total sum of your work on that device?
Yes.
What was the phone number associated with that device?
It was 843-957-3486.
And you mentioned you were able to get an email on that device as well. What was that email?
It was harley_hunt@yahoo.com.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Cross-examination. No questions, Your Honor. Do any of the jurors have any questions for Detective Rogers? Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
We'll retrieve that exhibit, Judge.
You may. Go ahead. Prosecution, for the next witness, please.
People would call Robert Sirois to the stand.
Right. Mr. Sirois, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please. You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. And please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
All right.
Good. Could you state your name and spell your last for the record?
Yes, sir. My name's Robert Sirois. My last name is spelled Sirois.
What is your current occupation?
I currently work in cybersecurity.
And you live down in Florida now?
Very recently, yes, sir.
We're flying a lot of people back from Florida for this. Did you live here in Colorado Springs back in 2020?
Yes, sir, I did.
Specifically, back in January of 2020, were you working for the El Paso County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. At that time, I was employed as a detective at the sheriff's office.
And how long were you with the sheriff's office?
As of that time, since 2013, so 7 years.
And were you assigned to do particular duties with regards to this investigation, the disappearance of Gannon Stauch?
Yes, sir.
One of those duties, did that involve you going out to the airport to obtain some video, surveillance video from a rental car agency?
That's correct. That would have been the Colorado Springs Airport.
Okay. Tell us about that. Tell the jury what you did and why you're going out there.
Yeah, on was January 29th in the morning. I was assigned to look for video surveillance regarding the rental of a car by Letecia Stauch at the Colorado Springs Airport. I went there and spoke with Colorado Springs Police, who are assigned to the airport, and they do police operations at the airport, and they also have access to the camera systems at the airport. And those guys told me they would look for some video for me. While they were doing that, I went up to the Avis rental car counter and spoke with the manager there. And they have some of their own cameras at the counter that they operate. And so the manager there was working with me on getting some of that footage as well.
And did you have some information with regards to a vehicle that was rented by Letecia Stauch from the Avis rental car at the airport?
Yeah, I was able to provide them some information on the car, which was a white Kia Rio. Had Texas plates, I believe. And so they were able to look up that in their system and give me some information regarding the rental, like the name of the person who rented it, what date and time that was. And so that way we could go back and look at the camera footage for when that rental was done at the counter there in the airport. And that information was for the previous morning around 8:50 or 9, where Letecia rented the car at the counter there. So there's video where she comes up, spends a few minutes doing the rental paperwork, and then leaving presumably to go get the rental car. And some of the airport footage from Colorado Springs Police corroborated that, had the same information, and she was in the same area of the airport kind of thing.
And so prior to going, did you have information what Letecia Stauch looked like, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I believe I had some pictures on my cell phone, driver's license info, that kind of thing for Letecia, so that I knew what I was, who I was looking for, what their physical description was, that kind of thing.
Did you have a rental agreement at that point, or did you get that later?
The manager there did give me a rental agreement with some of that information as to who did the rental or who paid for the rental.
And did that sync up with the video surveillance that you saw, that you alluded to, Ms. Stauch going to the counter and renting the vehicle?
Correct.
Now, at the time you're at the airport, were there some efforts being made to locate Leticia Stauch's black Tiguan?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what those efforts were?
Those efforts were assigned to other detectives and not myself, but I was aware that the airport was one of the locations we might have been looking for that particular vehicle. And so there were some detectives searching the airport for the black Tiguan at that time.
Did anything kind of unusual happen as you're at the Avis rental car with regards to the keys to this particular Kia rental?
Yes. So I was looking at a computer with the manager at Avis, and we were looking at some of the video surveillance. And one of the lot attendants came in, and she said, "Hey, I just got handed the keys to this vehicle about 10 minutes ago." And I probably wasn't there for super long at that point in time. And she saw what we were looking at on the computer screen and said, that's the same person that just handed me the keys. And she said, this lady handed me the keys, turned around, walked away, got in a white Jetta with another female, and they just drove off right away.
Now, prior to going out there, did you have any information that the Kia rental had been returned yet?
No, I did not believe it was returned yet, or didn't know yet.
Did you have any information whether or not the Kia was even at the airport at that point?
No, sir.
And so you go out there, just so I'm clear, you're going to talk to the manager about getting some surveillance video. One of the employees from Avis comes in and says, "Hey, that lady just dropped off the keys." And so what did you do after that?
At that point, I knew I had some Colorado Springs detectives in the airport searching for the Tiguan. And so I called that detective and I said, hey, the car, the Kia just got returned, but the lot attendant told me it's not in the returns area. Can you help me search the airport for this white Kia as well? And a little while later, he called me back and said he found it in the short-term parking lot.
And is that different from the rental return parking lot?
Yes, sir. If I might explain that.
Oh, sure, go ahead. Where is it located in relation to the rental car parking?
Yeah, at Colorado Springs Airport, everything's outdoor parking. So when you come in, there'll be signs for parking and rental car returns. So rental car returns takes you kind of to the front of the airport, and it's this area just for that. Short-term parking would take you through a gate that you have to get a ticket for, and then park in that area. And then long-term takes you to yet another area through a different gate that you would have to take a ticket for to get into.
Now, do you see the person that you saw on the surveillance video, that the attendant saw on the surveillance video and said, this is the person to hand me the keys? Leticia Stauch. Is she in the courtroom today?
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir. She's on my right wearing a green long sleeve shirt.
And that's the same person you saw in the video?
Yes, sir.
May the record reflect identification of the defendant?
The record will so reflect. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you got word that the Kia rental car was found in short-term parking. What did you do next?
At that point, I spoke a little bit more with the manager at Avis to get permission to search that car, since I knew that's what I would be doing as my next step in investigating the rental car now that we knew where it was. And so he put me in contact with, I guess, like a regional manager out of a different city who was able to provide me that consent to search the Kia via email. And so after I received that email, I went over there and took pictures, our normal process for searching a vehicle, opening up all the doors, taking pictures, documenting what you can see prior to actually going in there with, gloves and stuff on and digging around looking for items or for different kinds of evidence.
And do you know whether or not that's Avis's routine practice is to have customers to drop their cars off in short-term parking?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation about.
Sustained.
I'm just asking if he knows, Your Honor. I didn't ask.
Yep, but the knowledge is going to come from some hearsay source.
Okay.
Sustained.
So you said you went and you took photos of the Kia rental, and did you search it at that time?
Yes, sir.
Did you have to get permission to search it?
Yes, sir. And I received that via email from a regional Avis manager.
Okay. And so if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm going to hand you a series of exhibits.
Thank you.
I'll give you the numbers in just a second.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. And when you take the lid off or unscrew it, realize that it comes out fast.
Understood.
Okay, in front of you, I've given you People's Exhibits 234 through 238. Do you see those?
Yes, sir.
In People's Exhibits 234 through 237, are those photographs?
Yes, sir.
And are those photographs of the Kia rental as you saw it at the airport in short-term parking?
Yes, sir.
And do they actually depict that vehicle as you saw it there and the items that you found inside that vehicle as you saw it there on January 31st, or excuse me, January 29th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
Move to admit People's Exhibits 234 through 237.
Mr. Cook, exhibits 234 through 237 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Oh, I said just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
This point, Your Honor, no objection.
All right, Exhibit 234 through 237 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Request to publish People's Exhibit 234.
You may go ahead.
Okay, so we see People's Exhibit 234 here. What do we see in this exhibit?
This is a photograph of the car in the foreground. The closest car in the picture is the white Kia Rio that we've been discussing. The cars behind it are incidental. They had nothing to do with the photograph I was taking. They just happened to be in the background.
In this parking area, is this the short-term parking area that you alluded to?
Yes, sir. I can see the E1 parking sign back there that I had documented in my report.
Now, are you familiar with the airport and the various parking areas for the airport?
I'm pretty familiar with it, yes.
Are there signs that indicate long-term parking, short-term parking, rental car return?
Yeah, especially as you drive in, but also as you enter the parking area.
Now, if you go into the rental return area, would you have to get a parking ticket to park?
No, sir.
If you go into short-term or long-term parking, would you have to get a parking ticket to enter that facility?
Yes, sir. In both those cases, there's a gate that stops you and you have to press a button to get a ticket.
And are you familiar with how long you could stay in there without having to pay to park, for instance?
Yeah, I believe it was less than an hour, maybe an hour. May not even have been that long. And I only ran into that because I had driven through there to get over to where I took these photographs and kind of ran into that issue over at the place where you would pay for your parking. So I could drive through again to get into the correct lot. But I don't recall the exact amount of time, but it was less than an hour. It wasn't a huge amount of time.
Okay. If we can now go to People's Exhibit 235. What do we see in People's Exhibit 235?
This is a picture between the driver's seat and the door, down where there's a little bit of carpet kind of in that gap between the side of the seat and the door. And this is one of those parking tickets you get when you go park in short-term parking.
We can go to 236, please. What do we see in 236?
This is a picture of the one side of that parking ticket.
And 237?
This is a picture of the back side of that same parking ticket.
And so does it have a date and time stamped on that?
Yes, sir. This one says January 28th of 2020 at 16:41 hours, so 4:41 p.m.
What does that tell you with regards to that time stamp?
That tells me that that's the time the ticket was obtained at the gate. So when you push the button and it spits the ticket out, that is stamped on there at that time, which I know because I had to go through the same process when I went to go take these pictures and do the search of that car.
And then in front of you, we have People's Exhibit 238, which should be one of those brown envelopes. Do you see that?
Oh. Yes, sir.
What is People's Exhibit 238?
This is one of our evidence envelopes signed by me in the typical way that I sign it, at least on one side. And it's Sheriff's Office item number 14 with a description of parking ticket found in white Kia. So this would have been the envelope containing that ticket in the picture that I obtained from the search.
Okay. Would you need to open that to see if that in fact is the parking ticket in there?
I mean, yeah, somebody else has opened this since I originally sealed it.
Is that because there's two pieces of tape on there?
Yeah, so the way I would have originally sealed it is with this red tape at the top. I always do my name like this. I always do my initials like this. This piece of tape at the bottom is new since I first sealed it.
Why don't we go ahead and open it up? I think there may be some scissors to your right.
Okay.
See down by the Kleenex box?
Yeah.
And if you want gloves, there's some gloves over there too.
I'm okay to open this, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
It looks like, go ahead. It looks like you retrieved something from that envelope. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, sir. This is the same parking ticket we've been discussing in these pictures.
And is it in general same condition as it was when you packaged it?
Yes, sir.
Move to admit People's Exhibit 238.
Mr. Cook,
No objection.
Exhibit 238 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Go ahead and repackage that if you don't mind.
Somebody else will have to tape it.
We'll leave it as is right now, okay?
Understood.
Did you also do some cell bright extractions from cell phones in this case?
I did, sir.
And what is a cell bright extraction?
A Celebrate extraction is a Celebrate is a tool we use to download data from electronic devices, primarily cell phones, but it's capable of retrieving data from other types of devices. And so when we say a Celebrate download, what we mean is downloading data from an electronic device using that Celebrate tool.
And what kind of experience and training do you have in using that cell bright tool?
I have a fair amount of training in digital forensics, including Celebrate specific training provided by the vendor for using their tool for the purpose of cell phone extractions.
And approximately how many times have you done cell bright extractions?
Guessing probably about 300 extractions during my time at the sheriff's office.
And can you just describe the process for the jury? What exactly do you do with a phone to extract the information off of it?
Yes, sir. In order to extract data from a cell phone, there's quite a few different factors. So it can depend on the state of the phone, whether it's on or off, the screen's broken, whether it has an SD card in it, a SIM card in it, those kinds of things. But in general, what we like to do is make sure that the cell phone can't communicate with an outside network. And so that way we know it's not talking to other phones, talking to other networks while it's sitting in our lab as evidence. And so there's a few ways to do that. We can put it in, or it can be turned off, or it can be, we can take the SIM card out so it can't talk to a cellular network, or it can be put in a special box that blocks radio signals. And I would have to refer to my report to understand the condition of a particular extraction that I did and what those circumstances were. But at that point, we can connect the phone to the Celebrate device, so the tool that actually does the data extraction. And at that point, we also have some options. So depending on the make, model, firmware version, security patch, Celebrate will be able to communicate with that phone in a couple different ways. One way is it can read it as basically it will establish a communication link. So it'll send a piece of software to the phone that's very tiny that allows that communication to take place. And the phone has something built into it, most phones, called an application programming interface or an API. And that's just a fancy way of saying that phone has made certain kinds of communication available that Celebrate can utilize. So for example, Celebrate could say, hey, phone, let me download your pictures. And the phone will say, okay, here's my pictures. You can have all of them, or you can have some of them, or you can have only these ones. And again, that depends on a lot of factors. And what that results in is what we call a logical extraction. So we're saying, can we have certain pieces of data? And the phone says, yes, here they are. The second type of extraction we can do is called a file system. So that would be like opening some kind of drive, like a CD or a hard drive or a USB drive, and seeing all those files and folders there and taking them all and downloading them. And again, that depends on certain factors with the actual phone itself. And then the third type of extraction is called a physical extraction. And that's where you have Cellebrite is able to get access to the physical place where data is stored on the phone, whether that's like flash storage, or if, you know, it's phones don't really store data this way, but the old way would be like a spinny disk drive where there's actually like a metal magnetic disk with ones and zeros on it, and it can see all those ones and zeros and get every single bit, byte for byte, of data off the device, which is very rare for cell phones. But it is technically one method we can extract data, and that's called a physical extraction. At that point, Cellebrite downloads data in whatever fashion it can, and then it brings it into one of our forensic computers in the lab where we can look at it through probably Cellebrite software, but it's not limited to just Cellebrite software. There's other types of programs and tools we can use to look at that same data.
And when you extract the data off a cell phone, where do you put it? Where do you store it?
Mm-hmm. When we first download data off a cell phone, it's going to be in some files on one of our forensic workstations in our lab environment. From there, we copy it onto probably a CD or like a Blu-ray, whatever we can that's big enough to fit it on. And we'll put it in an envelope just like these, and we'll drop it into evidence just like any other type of evidence.
In this particular case, did you have an opportunity to do an extraction, a Cellebrite extraction, on an iPhone 8 belonging to an Al Stauch?
Yes, sir, I did. I believe that was from a waiver authority.
Okay. And in front of you is People's Exhibit 226. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And what is People's Exhibit 226?
This is one of our evidence envelopes, again, signed by me, which I can tell by my initials on it across the piece of tape. Then the description is item number 585, which is the sheriff's office item number. And it says it's a CD containing a Cellebrite report and photographs of Al S. I'm guessing that's going to say Al Stauch, iPhone 8 or cell phone. But this will be the CD that I would have put in evidence containing that data from the Cellebrite extraction.
And is that envelope still sealed with the original tape that you put on it?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been sealed in any other way since I originally sealed it on March 4th of 2020.
Does that tell you then the data that is on that CD or Blu-ray disc is accurate, same as it was when you put it in the envelope?
Yes, sir.
We've moved to admit People's Exhibit 226.
Defense,
No objection.
Exhibit 226 will be admitted. Go ahead.
Those are my questions, Your Honor. Thanks.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cook.
Are you working in Florida in law enforcement? Are you still a detective, or how shall I refer to you as?
You can refer to me as Robert. I left law enforcement last February.
Okay. All right. Well, Robert, so your part in this investigation of the disappearance of Gannon Stauch was what Mr. Young and you were talking about, but there were some other things you did as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You collected samples from this Kia vehicle from the airport that you located and was pictured in the photograph?
Yeah, I collected a few DNA samples during that search as well.
Okay. You took DNA swabs from the trunk of the Kia?
Yeah, I believe the area that I swabbed in the trunk would have been the threshold, so the part at the back bumper that's kind of a lip that goes, over into the trunk.
Okay. So you got DNA from the trunk area of the Kia. You got DNA from the steering wheel and the shifter of the Kia.
Yes, sir.
And you got DNA swabs from the internal driver door latch, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that would have been the latch on the inside part of the door.
Okay. And did you submit those DNA swabs you collected from this Kia to a lab for testing?
I personally did not. I only placed them in El Paso County evidence.
Do you know if these swabs were eventually tested or forwarded by somebody else with law enforcement to have testing on them?
If they were, I'm not aware of it.
Is there a difference for doing a Cellbrite download if you have the pass key or the passcode to the phone versus not having the passcode or the pass key to the phone?
Yes, sir. I mean, phones are designed to be secure and have varying types of security, and having a PIN code or a passcode is one type of security. So by inputting that PIN code, it will change the security state of the phone, and therefore, in most cases, the amount of data that's available to download from it.
Okay. So Mr. Stauch's phone, you had the passcode for that phone.
Yes, sir.
So you were able to access more information on his phone than you would be from a phone that you didn't have the passcode for, correct?
That's not necessarily true, but in most cases,
In most
is true.
cases.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Sirois? All right, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you, sir. And thank you all.
Prosecution, call your next witness, please.